Hello, friends. If you're curious about the movie Zootopia 2, November 26, 2025, you're in the perfect place. Don't forget to give this video a quick like, it really helps us out. And if you're new here, hit subscribe to stay updated on all the latest movie deep dives. Let's jump right in. In the bustling metropolis of Zootopia, where mammals of all shapes and sizes coexist, a new adventure is on the horizon. Zootopia 2, the much-anticipated sequel to Disney's 2016 animated hit, is set to hit theaters on November 26, 2025. Directed by Jared Bush and Byron Howard, this installment promises to delve deeper into the vibrant world of Zootopia, introducing new characters and challenges that will test our beloved protagonists like never before. The original film captivated audiences with its rich storytelling and dynamic duo, Judy Hopps, the optimistic rabbit police officer, and Nick Wilde, the sly fox with a heart of gold. Their unlikely partnership not only solved a major conspiracy but also broke societal barriers, teaching us about prejudice, perseverance, and friendship. Zootopia 2 aims to build upon these themes, offering a fresh narrative that intertwines action, mystery, and heartfelt moments. This time around, Judy and Nick find themselves on the twisting trail of a mysterious reptile who arrives in Zootopia and turns the mammal metropolis upside down. To crack the case, they must go undercover in unexpected new parts of town, where their growing partnership is tested like never before. The plot thickens as they venture into Marsh Market, a less explored district of Zootopia, inhabited predominantly by reptiles and amphibians. This vibrant yet perilous locale is a stark contrast to the familiar urban landscape, filled with winding alleys, exotic eateries, and a marketplace that never sleeps. Here, they encounter Gary, a charismatic yet elusive snake voiced by Kuhui Kwan, whose intentions remain shrouded in mystery. As Judy and Nick delve deeper into the investigation, they uncover a web of intrigue that threatens the harmony of Zootopia. The introduction of reptiles into the societal fabric raises questions about inclusion and bias, echoing the challenges faced in the first film but on a broader scale. The duo's undercover mission not only tests their detective skills but also their trust in one another as they navigate deceit, danger, and their own personal biases. The narrative is peppered with unexpected twists, including a revelation about the origins of Zootopia's societal structure and the hidden histories of its diverse districts. Allies become adversaries, and long-held beliefs are challenged, pushing Judy and Nick to their limits both professionally and personally. With stunning animation, a compelling storyline, and the return of beloved characters alongside intriguing new faces, Zootopia 2 is poised to be a cinematic experience that resonates with audiences of all ages. It not only entertains but also prompts reflection on contemporary social issues, all while keeping viewers on the edge of their seats. The city of Zootopia is alive again, pulsing with energy, mystery, and the promise of a new adventure. It's been years since audiences first stepped into the mammal metropolis, where predators and prey learn to coexist, and where an unlikely duo, Judy Hopps, the determined rabbit police officer, and Nick Wilde, the smooth-talking fox con artist-turned-cop, unraveled a conspiracy that threatened to tear their world apart. Zootopia 2 is here, and with it comes new challenges, new dangers, and new faces that will push our heroes to their limits. The original Zootopia left audiences captivated not only because of its dazzling animation and world-building but also because of its bold storytelling. Beneath the buddy cop humor and thrilling chase sequences, it tackled deep and relevant themes: prejudice, systemic bias, and the power of unity in a divided society. But as much as Zootopia's problems were seemingly solved at the end of the first movie, the world was never truly at peace. Beneath the surface, more secrets were waiting to be uncovered. This time, Judy and Nick's dynamic is put to the ultimate test as they go deeper than ever before into the uncharted corners of their city. Their partnership, once built on skepticism and later on trust, will now be strained in ways neither of them ever anticipated. And at the heart of it all? A mystery so big that it threatens not just Zootopia's delicate balance but the very idea of who belongs in it. The city may have made great strides in bringing mammals together, but what about those who were never invited? The arrival of a mysterious reptilian newcomer shakes things up in a way that no one saw coming. For years, Zootopia society has been built around the delicate balance between predators and prey, mammals working together despite their evolutionary differences. But what happens when an entirely different species enters the mix? When creatures that have been long ignored or cast aside suddenly demand to be recognized. Judy and Nick are thrust into the heart of this new social upheaval, tasked with investigating a case that pulls them into the shadows of Zootopia, into districts that even they have never ventured into before. Their mission takes them deep into Marsh Market, a hidden district where reptiles and amphibians have been living in secrecy, building their own society in the shadows of the city. It's here that they meet Gary, a smooth-talking snake whose charm is only rivaled by his elusiveness. He may have the answers they need, or he may be the mastermind behind it all. The deeper they go, the clearer it becomes. This is not just a simple investigation. It's a fight for survival, for belonging, for a future that neither of them could have predicted. Judy and Nick will have to face their own biases, their own fears, and their own beliefs about what it truly means to be part of Zootopia. Because this time, it's not just about solving a case, it's about redefining the city itself. But not everyone wants change. As Judy and Nick get closer to the truth, they realize they are being watched, followed, hunted. Someone in Zootopia doesn't want them uncovering the secrets that have been buried for so long. Someone who is willing to do whatever it takes to keep the city the way it is. The deeper they dig, the more dangerous the game becomes. With a stellar returning cast, breathtaking animation, and a story that is both timely and thrilling, Zootopia 2 promises to be one of Disney's most ambitious sequels yet. The film is set to push the boundaries of its world even further, exploring new districts, introducing new species, and raising the stakes in a way that will leave audiences on the edge of their seats. But perhaps the biggest question remains. Who truly belongs in Zootopia? And who decides? Zootopia 2 is more than just another fun-filled adventure. It's a mirror reflecting real-world struggles, wrapped in a narrative that is as gripping as it is thought-provoking. It challenges us to reconsider the way we see others, to look beyond the surface, and to recognize that true progress only happens when we acknowledge those who have been left behind. As the countdown to its release begins, fans everywhere are buzzing with anticipation. What will become of Judy and Nick's partnership? Will they make it out of this case alive? And, most importantly, will Zootopia ever be the same again? One thing's for sure, this time, the truth won't come easy. So, buckle up and get ready to dive back into the world of Zootopia. Because in this city, the sun rises over the towering skyline of Zootopia, casting golden light across the bustling city. The streets are alive with energy. Rabbits hop from shop to shop, rhinos march to work, and giraffes lean into cafe windows to grab their morning coffee. But today is no ordinary day. Something new is happening in Zootopia, something that is about to shake the city to its core. Judy Hopps, now a seasoned officer of the Zootopia Police Department, races through the streets on her police cruiser, ears perked up, eyes sharp. Life as a cop has been everything she hoped it would be. Crime rates have dropped significantly, predator-prey relations are the best they've been in years, and for once, it seems like the city is finally in harmony. But peace never lasts long in Zootopia. A new arrival has everyone talking, whispers filling the streets, news stations reporting non-stop. The city, which has always been home to mammals of all shapes and sizes, is about to face something completely unexpected. Reptiles have come to Zootopia. For the first time in history, a delegation of reptilian species, snakes, lizards, alligators, and more, have been granted citizenship in the great metropolis. Their existence had long been ignored by Zootopia's mammal-centric society, written off as creatures that belonged outside city limits, confined to their own distant communities. But now, they want in. With the arrival of Gary, a smooth-talking, mysterious snake who seems to be at the center of this new integration, tensions start to rise. Some mammals welcome the newcomers with open arms, while others don't trust them at all. Nick Wilde, now Judy's full-time partner in the force, watches the city react with skepticism and unease. He knows what it's like to be feared based on nothing but appearances. After all, he's lived his entire life being seen as a predator first and a fox second. He wants to believe that Zootopia has changed, that it can accept anyone, no matter where they come from. But something about Gary doesn't sit right with him. Judy and Nick are assigned to the case of monitoring the reptilian newcomers and ensuring that the transition is peaceful. But it doesn't take long for them to realize that something much bigger is happening beneath the surface. Late one night, a high-profile crime shakes the city. A wealthy entrepreneur, a famous lion known for his progressive views on inclusion, is found missing under mysterious circumstances. His home was ransacked, his security footage wiped clean, and the only clue left behind? A strange, scaly imprint on the floor. The media erupts into chaos. The sudden disappearance sparks old fears. Are the reptiles to blame? Have they come to take over? Judy and Nick, now at the center of the storm, know that this case is going to be their toughest yet. If they don't solve it fast, Zootopia could be torn apart by suspicion and division. They start by questioning Gary, the charming and enigmatic leader of the reptiles. He insists that the newcomers had nothing to do with the crime, that someone is trying to frame them, trying to stir up fear. He tells them that the reptiles just want a chance to be part of the city, to prove they belong. Judy, always the optimist, wants to believe him. Nick, not so much. The deeper they dig, the more unsettling things become. They visit Marsh Market, a hidden underground district where reptiles have secretly built their own society, long before Zootopia even recognized their existence. Here, they meet characters unlike any they've encountered before. Mysterious lizards with unreadable expressions, crocodiles with thick accents and sharper teeth, snakes that move so silently you don't notice them until they're right beside you. Some are friendly. Some are not. Judy and Nick realize that Marsh Market has its own secrets. The reptiles here aren't just integrating. They've been watching Zootopia for years, waiting for their moment. Some believe in peaceful coexistence. But others, they want justice. Tension in the city escalates. Protests break out, with mammals demanding answers, while reptiles refuse to be blamed for a crime they didn't commit. Mysterious threats appear on the walls of buildings, warning of something coming, something bigger than anyone expects. And then, the unthinkable happens. Judy and Nick are on patrol when an explosion shakes downtown Zootopia. A building collapses, and panic erupts in the streets. The police force scrambles to maintain order, but chaos is spreading like wildfire. And in the middle of it all, a new message appears, painted in giant letters across a wall near the wreckage. The city doesn't belong to you. Judy and Nick exchange a look. The stakes have just changed. Someone wants war. And unless they stop it, Zootopia may never be the same again. The chaos in Zootopia spreads like wildfire. The explosion downtown isn't just an act of destruction. It's a message, a warning that the city's delicate balance is on the verge of collapse. As smoke still rises from the wreckage, Judy Hopps and Nick Wilde rush to the scene, their police radios blaring with frantic voices. Sirens wail in the distance. Civilians scatter in confusion, some frozen in fear, others demanding answers. But Judy and Nick have none. Not yet. All they know is this: someone wants to turn Zootopia against itself. The tension between mammals and reptiles has reached its boiling point. The integration experiment, welcoming the city's first reptilian citizens, is now in jeopardy. News channels flash dramatic headlines. Is Zootopia safe? Who can be trusted? Protesters take to the streets. Some demand the immediate expulsion of the reptilian newcomers, blaming them for the attack. Others call for unity, insisting that this is exactly the kind of fear-mongering that has torn societies apart before, but Judy and Nick know that the truth isn't so simple. They return to Marsh Market, the hidden underground district where reptiles have been living in secrecy for years. The deeper they go, the more they realize how little they actually know about Zootopia. The city they thought they understood has cracks beneath its polished surface, places the law never touches, places built out of survival rather than privilege. They find Gary, the enigmatic snake who has been leading the reptilian newcomers, but this time he's not so cooperative. He's frustrated, angry, tired of being treated like a suspect. "You think we blew up that building? You think we want war?" he hisses, his golden eyes narrowing. "We've been trying to be part of your city for years. But you mammals, you only listen when there's a fire." Judy and Nick push him for answers. Someone orchestrated this attack. Someone wanted the city to descend into chaos. And it had to be someone with power, with influence, someone who knew exactly how to ignite fear. And then, a breakthrough. A witness comes forward. A young lizard, barely old enough to understand what's happening, tells Judy and Nick that he saw something strange on the night of the attack. He describes a figure moving through the shadows, planting something near the building before vanishing into the night. But it wasn't a reptile. It was a mammal. Judy's heart pounds. Someone is setting the reptiles up. Someone wants them to be blamed, to be exiled, to be erased. But who? And why? They race back to headquarters, where the ZPD has been scrambling to keep control of the city. Chief Bogo is under immense pressure from the mayor, who demands immediate action before things spiral out of control. The order is simple. Round up the reptiles. Bring them in for questioning. The investigation takes them into the highest levels of the city's leadership. They uncover old records, buried files, hidden documents that reveal a disturbing truth. Reptiles were never supposed to be part of Zootopia. Decades ago, when the city was first built, its founders made a decision. Only mammals would live here. Reptiles were deliberately excluded, left to fend for themselves in the outskirts. And someone wants to keep it that way. The true mastermind behind the attack? A powerful city official who has been manipulating events from the shadows. Someone who has been working for years to ensure that Zootopia remains exactly as it was built to be, a city for mammals only. Judy and Nick race to confront them before it's too late. But the moment they get too close, they are set up. A false tip is leaked to the ZPD. Suddenly, Judy and Nick are fugitives. Their own department turns against them, believing they have been conspiring with the reptiles all along. Now they have no badge, no backup, no allies, only the truth. And if they don't act fast, Zootopia will burn. With the entire city hunting them, Judy and Nick have only one option left: to go underground, to hide within Marsh Market, and to convince the reptilian leaders to trust them long enough to make their move. Gary is reluctant. "Why should we help you?" he asks. "We've been fighting to survive without you for years." Judy, desperate, tells him the truth. This isn't just about reptiles and mammals anymore. It's about who gets to decide who belongs. And if we let them win, Zootopia will never change. Slowly, the resistance forms. The reptiles, those who have spent years hiding, finally step into the light. A final confrontation takes place at City Hall, where the mastermind behind it all prepares to announce new laws that would force the reptiles out forever. It's a trap, one designed to paint the reptiles as criminals, as threats. If they resist, if they fight back, it will justify everything the city fears about them. But Judy and Nick arrive just in time, broadcasting the truth to the entire city. They reveal who really orchestrated the attacks, who planted the evidence, who has been working behind the scenes to control the narrative. Zootopia watches. The city listens. And then, something happens that no one expected. A young reptilian girl, a tiny gecko, no older than 6, steps forward. She looks up at the cameras, at the sea of faces staring at her. And she asks, "Why don't you want us here?" Silence falls over Zootopia. And in that moment, everything changes. The city's walls, both literal and metaphorical, begin to crumble. The truth is out. And now, Zootopia must decide what kind of city it wants to be. Judy and Nick, exhausted, watch as the reptilian community is finally recognized as part of Zootopia. It's not an instant fix. There's still tension, still distrust, still a long road ahead. But for the first time, real change has begun. As the dust settles, Judy turns to Nick and smirks. Still think this city's a lost cause? Nick, watching as mammals and reptiles shake hands for the first time in history, shrugs. He says, grinning. It's growing on me. And with that, Zootopia takes its first step into a new future. The city of Zootopia is built on the idea that anyone can be anything. But the truth, as its inhabitants have learned, is far more complicated. In Zootopia 2, this complexity is pushed even further, and at the center of it all are the characters, old and new, who define the battle between progress and fear, unity and division, truth and deception. Judy Hopps remains the heart of the story, but she is no longer the wide-eyed, eager rookie she once was. She has seen the best and worst of Zootopia, fought against corruption, uncovered conspiracies, and proved that change is possible. But now, she faces something even more difficult, the realization that the battle never truly ends. The prejudice she fought so hard against is still present, lurking beneath the surface, disguised in different forms. Judy has always believed in justice, in doing what's right, in fighting for those who can't fight for themselves. But in Zootopia 2, she's forced to question everything she thought she knew about her city. The arrival of the reptiles challenges her in a way she never expected. Unlike the case with the missing mammals in the first film, this isn't just about solving a crime. It's about deciding who Zootopia belongs to. For the first time, Judy begins to wonder, what if justice isn't always enough? What if real change requires something more? Then there's Nick Wilde, the fox who went from being a con artist to a respected police officer, from a hustler who avoided trouble to a detective who now runs headfirst into it. Nick has always been skeptical. He understands Zootopia's rules better than most, because he spent his entire life navigating them, finding ways around them, surviving within them. He has never believed in the world Judy saw, a world where anyone can be anything, because his own experiences told him otherwise. But Judy changed him. She showed him that trust was possible, that friendship could exist outside of labels, that sometimes the world could be better than what he had come to expect. And yet, in Zootopia 2, Nick's skepticism returns. The reptiles? He doesn't trust them. Maybe it's his instincts, maybe it's the way they move, the way they watch. Or maybe it's because deep down, he knows exactly what it feels like to be the outsider, and he doesn't want to admit it. Nick's journey in this film is about confronting his own biases. He doesn't want to be like the people who judged him for being a fox. He doesn't want to make the same mistake. But what if he's right? What if some people, some creatures, really can't be trusted? And that's where Gary comes in. Smooth. Intelligent. Dangerous. No one knows for sure. Gary is a mystery. A snake with a voice as slick as oil, a creature who speaks in riddles and never quite says what he means. He represents everything Zootopia has ignored for years, a symbol of a world that existed in the shadows while mammals built their perfect city. Gary isn't just a character. He's a test. For Judy, he's a challenge to her faith in fairness, in the idea that everyone deserves a chance. For Nick, he's a mirror of everything he has ever feared, a reminder that some smiles hide sharp teeth. But who is Gary, really? A hero fighting for his people? A manipulator playing a long game? Or simply someone who sees Zootopia for what it is and wants to burn it all down? And then there's Chief Bogo, the commanding presence of the ZPD, always practical, always by the book. He has supported Judy in the past, given her a chance when others wouldn't, but now he's under pressure from the city's leaders. The mayor wants order. The citizens want action. And Bogo? He's caught in the middle. She tries to stay neutral, to believe that the law will do its job and that fairness will prevail. But as she digs deeper, she realizes that Zootopia itself is flawed, that the very system she swore to protect has been built to exclude certain creatures from the start. And that realization shakes her. For years, he has been a symbol of authority, of control. But in Zootopia 2, he faces something he's never had to deal with before: uncertainty. For the first time, the city's problems aren't just about criminals and cops. They're about history, justice, power, and the fear of change. And the biggest question he must answer? Is law and order the solution or the problem? Among the many new faces in Zootopia 2, one stands out: a reptilian figure from the past, someone who was there when the city was first built. A crocodile, old and wise, who remembers the time before the walls of Zootopia were raised, before the mammals decided who belonged and who didn't. This character, known only as the Founder, holds the key to Zootopia's past, the secrets no one wants to talk about, the truths that have been buried beneath years of progress. And when Judy and Nick finally meet him, they realize that this story isn't just about the future of Zootopia. It's about its past, its mistakes, and the price of pretending history doesn't matter. Throughout the film, each character is forced to make a choice. Judy must decide: will she protect the law, or will she challenge it? Nick must ask himself, is his instinct telling him the truth, or is it just fear? Gary must choose: will he fight for acceptance or for revenge? And Chief Bogo must face the hardest decision of all. Is he willing to let the city change, even if it means losing control? By the end of Zootopia 2, nothing is the same. The city has changed. The characters have changed. And as they stand together, looking out at a world that is no longer divided in the same way it once was, one thing becomes clear. This isn't just a city. It's a story. And it's still being written. The making of Zootopia 2 was as full of twists, surprises, and unexpected challenges as the mystery at the heart of the film itself. From behind-the-scenes mishaps to hidden Easter eggs, this sequel wasn't just a return to the beloved world of mammals. It was a journey that had more secrets lurking beneath the surface than even Judy Hopps could have anticipated. Long before production officially began, Zootopia 2 was one of the most requested Disney sequels. Fans of the original film had spent years speculating about what would come next. Would Judy and Nick's partnership evolve? Would Zootopia face another crisis? Would we finally get to explore new districts of the city? But what no one knew was that the earliest versions of the sequel were vastly different from what made it to the final script. In fact, Disney had 3 different versions of Zootopia 2 in development before settling on the final story. One concept had Judy and Nick investigating a series of mysterious disappearances linked to an underground society of nocturnal animals. Another revolved around a high-tech conspiracy involving cybernetic enhancements for Zootopia's wealthiest citizens. The version that ultimately made it to screen, a story about reptilian newcomers shaking up the city's delicate balance, was a late development, inspired by real-world discussions about inclusivity, systemic biases, and hidden histories. One of the biggest challenges during production was designing the reptilian characters. Unlike the mammals of the first film, which had fur, whiskers, and expressive ears to help convey emotion, reptiles presented a unique animation challenge. Their scales, elongated bodies, and smooth skin meant that Disney's animators had to completely rethink how expressions worked. How do you make a snake smirk? How do you give a crocodile an inquisitive look? To solve this, the animators studied real reptiles for months. They analyzed the way a chameleon's pupils dilate, how an iguana's throat expands when it's nervous, and how a snake's tongue flickers when it senses something nearby. These subtle details were blended into the film's animation, making the reptilian characters feel just as expressive as their furry counterparts, without making them feel unnatural. But that wasn't the only challenge. A particularly strange problem arose when early test audiences felt unsettled by the way the snakes moved. Some viewers reported feeling viscerally uncomfortable watching one particular scene where the main reptilian character, Gary, slowly slithered around a dimly lit room while speaking in a hushed tone. It felt too real. Two eerie animators went back and made small adjustments, slowing down certain movements, softening eye reflections, and tweaking lighting angles. The result? Gary still maintained his air of mystery, but without making audiences feel like they were trapped in a snake exhibit. Speaking of Gary, the role of this smooth-talking, enigmatic snake was originally meant for another actor before landing in the hands of the fan-favorite performer who ultimately voiced him. While the studio never publicly confirmed who the first choice was, rumors suggest that at one point, the role was being considered for a well-known Hollywood legend famous for playing morally complex characters. Once the final casting was locked in, the voice actors were given more freedom than ever before. Unlike the first film, where most of the script was tightly controlled, Zootopia 2 allowed its actors, especially Nick Wilde's voice actor, to improvise entire scenes. Some of the funniest, most heartfelt moments in the film weren't in the original script. They were the result of actors riffing off each other during recording sessions. But not all behind-the-scenes moments were fun and games. During one particular recording session, a strange incident occurred that left the sound engineers scratching their heads. While recording a scene where Judy and Nick sneak through the Marsh Market at night, a mysterious, unplanned sound was captured in the audio track. It was a whisper. Barely audible, but there. When they played it back, everyone in the room heard the same thing. A voice, barely more than a breath, murmuring something indistinguishable. At first, they thought it was a glitch. Maybe an accidental pickup from one of the crew members. But when they isolated the track, there was no explanation for where the sound came from. It wasn't any of the actors, it wasn't the recording equipment, and it wasn't from an external source. The engineers joked that maybe Zootopia itself was trying to tell them something. The sound was ultimately removed from the final mix, but those who were in the room that day still talk about it. Of course, no Disney movie is complete without its hidden references and Easter eggs, and Zootopia 2 has plenty. Some are callbacks to the first film. Nick's childhood scout uniform makes a reappearance in a Blink Can You'll Miss It scene, and the infamous donut from the original film's chase sequence is spotted in the background of a police station bulletin board. Other Easter eggs are nods to classic Disney films. A shop in Marsh Market sells Bugs Life protein bars, and in one citywide protest scene, a certain well-dressed rat from The Great Mouse Detective can be seen shaking his fist at the camera. But the most talked-about hidden detail? A cryptic symbol painted on a wall in the background of one of the final scenes. It's only visible for a second, barely noticeable, but it resembles an ancient emblem, a reptilian eye surrounded by markings. Some fans believe it's just a design choice. Others think it's a clue. A hint that something even bigger is lurking beneath Zootopia's history, waiting to be explored in a potential third film. Whether or not that theory holds any weight remains to be seen. But one thing is certain, Zootopia 2 is full of surprises, both on and off the screen. And just like the city itself, it seems there will always be more stories to uncover, more mysteries to solve, and more secrets hidden in the shadows. The return to Zootopia was never going to be simple. The first film had already set a precedent, blending entertainment and social commentary in a way that resonated deeply with audiences. Zootopia 2 had the unenviable task of living up to its predecessor while pushing the narrative forward. It had to be more than just a bigger adventure. It had to challenge the very foundation of the world it had built. And it did. From the moment the first hints of the plot were revealed, it was clear that Zootopia 2 wasn't going to play it safe. The original film had tackled themes of bias, discrimination, and fear-driven division through the lens of a buddy cop mystery. This time, the stakes were even higher. It wasn't just about personal prejudices, it was about systemic exclusion, hidden histories, and the battle between progress and tradition. The introduction of reptiles into Zootopia wasn't just a plot device, it was a metaphor. The city had spent its existence as a mammal-dominated society, priding itself on inclusivity while silently ignoring entire species. The sudden arrival of reptiles, long kept outside of the city's borders, forced Zootopia to confront the uncomfortable reality of its own past. One of the most critical moments in the film comes early on when Judy Hopps and Nick Wilde attend a press conference led by the city's leadership to introduce Zootopia's first reptilian citizens. The scene feels eerily familiar, a moment where progress is being presented as a celebration, but tension lingers beneath the surface. As the cameras flash and the officials talk about new beginnings and equal opportunities, the reactions from the crowd tell a different story. Some mammals clap politely. Others exchange wary glances. In the background, a protest sign briefly appears on screen, just out of focus. It reads, "Zootopia is for mammals." It's a subtle moment, but it sets the tone for everything that follows. This isn't a story about easy solutions. It's about what happens when a society is forced to confront who it has excluded and why. Then comes the first major turning point, the disappearance of a high-profile Zootopian figure. The case is shrouded in mystery, but all the evidence seems to point in one direction: the reptiles. The brilliance of this moment isn't just in its execution, it's in how it reflects the exact cycle of fear that the first film exposed. A crime occurs. The media rushes to assign blame. The public reacts with suspicion and outrage, not because of any concrete proof, but because it fits a narrative they've already been conditioned to believe. Judy and Nick, now veterans of the ZPD, find themselves caught between the law and their own instincts. Judy, ever the optimist, wants to believe in justice. She trusts the system she serves, believes that the truth will reveal itself if they just follow the evidence. Nick, on the other hand, is more cynical than ever. He's been on the receiving end of that kind of suspicion. He knows that it doesn't matter what the truth is. What matters is what people want to believe. Their conflict over how to approach the case adds layers of tension to the film. It's no longer just about solving a mystery. It's about confronting the biases they still carry within themselves. And then, the explosion downtown changes everything. This moment is, without a doubt, the film's most visceral turning point. It's shocking, sudden, and terrifyingly real. It's a reminder that violence has always been the fastest way to shatter the illusion of peace. The explosion doesn't just destroy a building, it destroys trust. The city turns against the reptiles almost instantly. Protests become riots. Lawmakers begin drafting emergency policies that would place restrictions on the reptilian population. News channels frame the narrative with carefully chosen language. Words like threat, infiltration, and security concerns begin appearing in headlines. It's a haunting reflection of real-world history. The best moments in Zootopia 2 aren't just the high-stakes action sequences or the clever detective work. They're the quiet, unsettling moments where reality seeps into the fiction. One of these moments comes when a young reptilian child watches his mother get turned away from a business. The owner doesn't yell, doesn't get aggressive. He just sighs, shakes his head, and flips a sign in the window from open to closed. The mother takes her child's hand and walks away without a word. Judy, watching from a distance, has no idea what to say. It's in that moment that she truly understands. This isn't just about the case anymore. This is about who gets to belong. But the film doesn't let the audience rest in that discomfort for long. Just as the conflict seems irreparable, Judy and Nick uncover the true mastermind behind the violence. And this is where Zootopia 2 pulls its most brilliant trick. The villain isn't a reptile. It isn't even a radical activist trying to divide the city. It's a high-ranking official who has been pulling the strings from the very beginning, someone who benefited from keeping the city divided, who saw the reptiles not as a threat, but as an opportunity to manipulate public fear. The reveal lands like a gut punch because it forces the audience to question everything they've assumed up to that point. The real enemy was never the reptiles. The real enemy was the system itself. The climax of the film isn't just about stopping the villain. It's about forcing the city to face the truth. When Judy and Nick broadcast the evidence to the entire city, the reaction is stunning silence. Because what do you do when you realize you've been lied to? In the final moments of the film, Zootopia 2 delivers one of its most powerful scenes. A press conference. The same way it all started. But this time, there are no rehearsed speeches, no carefully chosen words. A young reptilian girl steps up to the microphone. She looks out at the crowd, at the mammals who once saw her as an outsider, a danger, a problem to be solved. And she asks, simply, "Can I stay?" The screen fades to black. The brilliance of Zootopia 2 lies in how it forces the audience to sit with that question. It doesn't offer easy answers. It doesn't tie everything up in a neat bow. It leaves you with a choice, to ignore, to look away, or to recognize that true change is never comfortable. And that's why Zootopia 2 is more than just a sequel. It's a challenge, a reflection, a story that refuses to be forgotten. From the moment Zootopia 2 was greenlit, it was clear that this sequel was going to be one of the most ambitious animated films in Disney's modern era. The first Zootopia had already set a high standard. Its world was expansive, its characters felt alive, and its story managed to balance humor, action, and powerful social themes in a way that resonated with audiences of all ages. But making a sequel meant diving even deeper into the world, pushing the limits of animation, storytelling, and creativity. But making a sequel meant diving even deeper into the world, pushing the limits of animation, storytelling, and creativity. And as production got underway, the team quickly realized that this was no simple task. One of the most significant challenges came with the introduction of reptiles into Zootopia's mammal-dominated world. Unlike the furry creatures of the first film, these new residents didn't have whiskers, fluffy tails, or soft fur that could catch the light in realistic ways. Instead, they had scales, smooth bodies, and movement patterns that were entirely different. The animators spent months studying reptiles in real life, watching how lizards' muscles moved under their skin, how snakes coiled and uncoiled, and even how a crocodile's smile could look both friendly and menacing at the same time. One particularly strange challenge? Making a snake emote. In early animation tests, Gary, the film's enigmatic and smooth-talking snake character, looked too alien, too unreadable. Audiences watching the test screenings said that his face felt too static, making it difficult to connect with his emotions. To fix this, the animators developed a brand-new facial rigging system that allowed them to subtly adjust the shape of his eyes, the curve of his mouth, and even the way his body moved to convey personality. They added tiny muscle contractions around his jaw when he spoke, making it feel like he was shifting expressions in his own unique way. But it wasn't just the animation team facing challenges. The voice actors had their own adventures, too. Unlike the first film, where most of the actors recorded their lines separately, Zootopia 2 had multiple recording sessions where actors performed together in the same room. This allowed for more natural improvisation, leading to some of the film's funniest and most heartfelt moments. One hilarious behind-the-scenes moment happened during a heated argument scene between Judy Hopps and Nick Wilde. The scene was supposed to be dramatic, Judy accusing Nick of not trusting her, Nick firing back with his own frustrations. But halfway through one of the takes, Nick's voice actor accidentally tripped over a word and turned it into an entirely new sentence. The mistake was so funny that the entire room burst into laughter, but instead of redoing the line, the director decided to keep it in. In fact, they even animated Nick smirking mid-argument, making it seem like he was messing with Judy on purpose. But not all moments on set were filled with laughter. Some were downright unsettling. During one late-night sound recording session, something strange happened. The sound engineers were capturing background ambience for the Marsh Market scenes, recording different whispers, market chatter, and environmental noises. And then, in one of the takes, they heard something they hadn't recorded. A faint, unidentifiable whisper. At first, they assumed it was a glitch, but after playing it back multiple times, the whisper seemed too distinct, like someone had murmured a sentence just out of earshot. Nobody in the recording booth had said anything. The actors weren't even present for that session. The whisper was eventually removed from the final mix, but the sound engineers still talk about that night, jokingly referring to it as Zootopia's ghostly guest appearance. And then there were the Easter eggs. Disney is known for hiding secret references in its films, and Zootopia 2 was no exception. One of the biggest cameos? A blink and you'll miss it moment featuring a certain famous rat from The Great Mouse Detective. In a background scene set in Zootopia's historic district, you can spot a small shop called Basil's Antiques, a direct nod to the classic Disney detective. Another hidden detail? A newspaper headline referencing the events of the first film. In one scene, a character briefly holds up a newspaper with an article titled, "Where is Bellwether Now?" referencing the former mayor's infamous imprisonment. And perhaps the most chilling Easter egg, a cryptic symbol spray-painted onto a wall in Marsh Market. The symbol, which appears only briefly, looks like an ancient reptilian eye surrounded by mysterious markings. Fans have speculated that this could be a teaser for a possible third film, hinting at even deeper secrets hidden within Zootopia's past. One of the most surprising technical achievements of the film was how they handled water. A key part of Zootopia 2 takes place near the city's foggy marshlands, a brand-new environment never seen in the first film. Unlike the crisp, clean streets of downtown, Marsh Market was meant to feel murky, alive, and unpredictable. To make the setting feel as real as possible, the animation team completely rebuilt their water physics engine from scratch. Instead of the smooth, sparkling lakes seen in other Disney films, Marsh Market's water was filled with currents, bubbles, and even tiny ripples reacting to characters' movements. In fact, every time a character stepped in water, the ripple effects were individually animated, making it one of the most complex environments Disney had ever created. But what really made Zootopia 2 special wasn't just its technical advancements or hidden secrets, it was the way the team poured their hearts into it. During a wrap-up interview, one of the lead animators admitted that the film changed the way they saw their own world. The first Zootopia was about bias, about learning to see people beyond stereotypes. But this one was about history, about acknowledging who has been left out. It made me think about all the stories we never hear. And maybe it's time we start listening. And that, in the end, is what made Zootopia 2 more than just another sequel. It was a film about voices that had long been ignored finally being heard. A story about a city forced to face its past, and a future that was still being written. And most importantly, a reminder that Zootopia, like the real world, is always evolving. Zootopia has always been more than just a city. It is a living, breathing world, a place where towering skyscrapers coexist with dense jungles, where Arctic tundras meet sandy deserts, and where every street corner tells a different story. The original Zootopia introduced audiences to a metropolis built for all species, a city that felt like it had existed long before the movie began and would continue long after the credits rolled. But in Zootopia 2, that world expands in ways no one expected, and in ways that completely change the way we see it. From the very first frame, it's clear that this is not the same Zootopia we left behind. The city feels bigger, darker, more divided. The energy is different, the streets feel more crowded, and for the first time, the cracks beneath its perfect surface are starting to show. The setting isn't just a backdrop for the story, it is the story. And as Judy and Nick navigate this world once again, the places they visit reflect not just the scale of the city, but the conflicts within it. One of the most stunning new locations introduced in Zootopia 2 is Marsh Market, a district hidden deep within the city, one that has remained unseen and largely unacknowledged by the mammals who built Zootopia. Unlike the modern polished downtown areas we saw in the first film, Marsh Market is older, murkier, and layered with history. It is a place that has existed for years in shadows and whispers, a secret underground economy where reptiles and amphibians have quietly built their own version of the city. It is a place that has existed for years in shadows and whispers, a secret underground economy where reptiles and amphibians have quietly built their own version of the city, one where they can exist without the judgment of the outside world. Visually, Marsh Market is unlike anything else in Zootopia. Its streets are narrow and winding, its buildings covered in creeping vines and faded signage, and its atmosphere thick with mist and neon lights that flicker just a little too much. Unlike the vibrant, sunny colors of Zootopia's main districts, Marsh Market is bathed in deep blues, sickly greens, and soft, golden lantern light that glows through the fog. It is beautiful in a way that feels dangerous, a place where every shadow might be hiding a secret, where the past has never truly disappeared. The cinematography in these sequences leans into the unsettling nature of the setting. The camera lingers for just a second longer than it should, making the audience feel like something, or someone, is always watching from the darkness. Reflections in puddles distort characters' faces, alleyways seem to stretch into infinity, and every time Judy and Nick turn a corner, the space behind them feels like it shifts, like the city is alive and constantly moving. One of the most powerful visual motifs in Zootopia 2 is the use of mirrors and reflections. Throughout the film, characters are frequently seen through glass, in puddles, in distorted security camera footage, always slightly separated from their own images. This reinforces one of the film's key themes: who we are versus who the world sees us as. For Nick, this comes in the form of his old identity versus his new role as an officer. There's a moment where he stands before a storefront window, his reflection staring back at him, but it's not in his uniform. Instead, he sees himself as the street hustler he used to be, the fox that everyone once assumed he was. It's a simple shot, no dialogue, but it speaks volumes. For Judy, the mirrors serve a different purpose. In one particularly striking scene, she finds herself in a hallway lined with glass, her reflection multiplied infinitely in both directions. It is a visual representation of her growing uncertainty. For the first time, she doesn't know which version of herself she should trust. The determined officer? The idealist? The skeptic? The leader? She is all of them, and none of them, all at once. The use of light and color in Zootopia 2 is also more nuanced and deliberate than ever before. The original film relied on bright, warm tones to make the city feel inviting, even in moments of tension. But here, there's a subtle shift. The lighting feels colder, more fragmented. The world is still full of color, but it is used differently. When Judy and Nick walk the crowded streets of downtown, neon signs pulse aggressively, casting harsh pinks and blues against the characters' fur. Faces are half lit, half hidden, creating a feeling of unease. But when they step into Marsh Market, the lighting changes entirely. The warm, golden glow of lanterns fights against the deep shadows, giving the entire district an eerie, dreamlike quality, beautiful but unsettling. A place of secrets, of whispers, of stories never told. Sound design plays an equally important role in creating the film's atmosphere. While the first Zootopia had a lively, energetic city soundscape, honking cars, upbeat chatter, the distant hum of music spilling from restaurants, Zootopia 2 introduces quiet spaces that feel overwhelmingly loud. Marsh Market, for example, has no traditional background music. Instead, the sound is filled with distant dripping water, the occasional croak of a hidden frog, the rustling of unseen movement in the alleyways. One of the most chilling moments in the film comes when Judy and Nick are walking through a reptilian hideout, searching for answers. The sound here is completely stripped down. No music, just their footsteps and the occasional flickering of a faulty street lamp. Then, without warning, there's a soft hissing sound. So faint, so subtle, that the audience isn't sure if they actually heard it or if it was their imagination. This use of silence and isolated sounds adds an extra layer of tension and realism, making the world feel more immersive, more unpredictable. Another setting that plays a major role in Zootopia 2 is the historic district, an area of the city long abandoned by modern development. Unlike the sleek, polished skyscrapers of downtown, the historic district is filled with ancient architecture, stone roads that have been overtaken by moss, and crumbling structures that hint at a past no one wants to talk about. It is here that Judy and Nick discover a hidden truth about Zootopia's origins, a revelation that shakes the very foundation of what they thought they knew about their city. The way this setting is presented is entirely different from any other location in the film. The cinematography shifts dramatically, moving from fast-paced, energetic sequences to long, slow tracking shots that make everything feel heavy, still, and almost sacred. As they uncover the secrets buried in these forgotten streets, the camera lingers on details. A crumbling mural depicting mammals who look eerily similar to current political figures, a faded map that includes a part of the city that no longer officially exists, the quiet echo of wind moving through doorways that haven't been opened in years. The setting becomes a character of its own. Not just a place, but a testament to history, to what has been erased, to what is now coming back to light. By the end of Zootopia 2, the city has changed, not just in the eyes of the characters, but in the eyes of the audience. The film forces us to reconsider what we thought we knew about this world, just as Judy and Nick are forced to do. The city is still alive, still thriving. But now, we know that some stories were never told. Some places were never seen. Some voices were never heard, and for the first time, they finally are. The world of Zootopia may second be animated, but the journey to bringing it to life was just as real, and just as full of unexpected twists, as the mystery at the heart of the film. Behind the scenes, the cast, crew, animators, and writers poured their hearts into every detail, creating a sequel that didn't just revisit the city of Zootopia but expanded it in ways that even they didn't anticipate. But the road to making Zootopia 2 was not without its challenges. From complex animation hurdles to eerie on-set moments, to cast members who couldn't stop cracking each other up, every step of the process came with stories that prove the magic of movie-making isn't just in what we see on screen. It's in everything that happens when the cameras, or in this case, the rendering engines, aren't rolling. One of the biggest hurdles the animation team faced was designing the reptilian characters. In the first film, all the characters were mammals, meaning they shared a certain visual softness, fur, rounded features, and a natural warmth in their animation. Reptiles, on the other hand, completely different territory. Animators had to completely rethink how to express emotion without relying on the furrowed brows or twitching ears that had worked so well for characters like Judy and Nick. How do you make a snake smirk? How do you make a crocodile look surprised without making it comical? Early test footage showed that some of the reptiles looked too creepy, too uncanny, making test audiences feel uneasy in ways that weren't intentional. Early test footage showed that some of the reptiles looked too creepy, too uncanny, making test audiences feel uneasy in ways that weren't intentional. One early design for Gary, the charismatic snake character, made him look too realistic, his movements too smooth, his stare too unblinking. The animators realized that what worked in real life wouldn't necessarily translate well into animation. They ended up tweaking his expressions, adding subtle muscle movements in his face, and adjusting his eye dilation to match his emotions. It wasn't just the animation team who faced challenges. The voice actors also had their share of surprises. One of the most surprising behind-the-scenes changes? Gary, the snake, was originally going to be played by a completely different actor. The role had been written with a very different voice in mind, deeper, more sinister. But when the final casting choice was made, the entire energy of the character shifted. The new voice actor brought a charming, almost playful unpredictability to the role, which changed the way the animators approached his movement. Instead of making him a slow-moving, intimidating presence, they gave Gary more fluidity, more personality, turning him into a character who slithers in and out of conversations with ease, always leaving others guessing. Nick Wilde's voice actor also had the entire cast in stitches during recording sessions. Unlike the first film, where he followed the script closely, this time he was given more freedom to improvise, and that led to some of the funniest moments in the film being completely unscripted. One example? There's a moment where Nick is interrogating a suspect, and in frustration, he blurts out a sarcastic one-liner that was never in the script. The line was so unexpected that Judy's voice actress broke character mid-scene, laughing so hard that the take was unusable. The scene had to be re-recorded multiple times, with the animators later choosing to keep Nick's improvised remark because it fit his character so perfectly. Then there was the ghost incident. During one particularly late night in the recording studio, the sound engineers were capturing background ambience, things like wind, distant city noises, and the hum of Marsh Market's neon signs. And then they heard something they didn't record. A whisper. So faint it could barely be heard, but it was there. Thinking it was just an accident, they played the recording back, but the whisper remained. The room was completely empty at the time of recording, with no actors or crew present. To this day, no one knows what caused it. Some joked that Zootopia itself was trying to tell them something. Others shrugged it off as a technical glitch. Either way, the whisper was cut from the final mix, but it became one of the strangest stories from production. Another surprising challenge? The city of Zootopia itself had to be completely rebuilt. Many fans assumed that the animation team could reuse most of the assets from the first film. After all, the city already existed. Why not just drop in the new characters and locations? But technology had changed drastically since Zootopia first hit theaters. Instead of simply recycling old assets, the team recreated the entire city from scratch, this time with even greater detail. Buildings had more texture, crowds were denser and more interactive, and the new districts, especially Marsh Market, had to feel completely organic, as if they had always been there. The lighting engine was also entirely revamped. The original Zootopia had a bright, colorful palette that made the city feel inviting. But for Zootopia 2, the lighting had to be more complex, more moody, more alive. One of the most impressive new techniques used was real-time fog simulation. In Marsh Market, fog drifts through the streets dynamically, reacting to characters as they move through it. If someone rushes past, the fog swirls in their wake. If a character stands still, the mist settles around them. This may seem like a small detail, but it added an entirely new level of immersion to the film. And then there were the hidden Easter eggs. Like all Disney films, Zootopia 2 is packed with references to other movies, inside jokes, and even a few nods to real-world events. One of the most talked-about Easter eggs? A missing mammals case file that briefly appears on a desk in the ZPD. The name on it? Bellwether. Though she was locked away in the first film, this subtle detail suggests that her influence may not be entirely gone. Another fun reference? A graffiti tag in Marsh Market that reads, "I was here, R." Many fans believe this is a hidden reference to Robin Hood, one of Disney's most famous Fox characters, a fun nod to Nick Wilde's spiritual predecessor. Then there's the mysterious insignia painted on a wall in the background of a crucial scene. It appears for only a second, but it matches ancient reptilian symbols found in real-world history. Could this be a hint at the origins of Marsh Market? A clue for a possible Zootopia 3? The animators won't say. But what they will say is that Zootopia 2 is filled with secrets waiting to be uncovered. And that's exactly what makes this movie, and the experience of making it, so special. Because in a city like Zootopia, there's always more than meets the eye. Zootopia 2 is more than just a sequel. It's a mirror reflecting the struggles of identity, inclusion, and the hidden histories that shape a society. The first film introduced us to a city where predator and prey were supposed to live in harmony, yet deep-seated biases threatened to tear them apart. Now, the sequel pushes these ideas even further, revealing that the story of Zootopia was never as complete as it seemed. At its core, Zootopia 2 is about who gets to belong. This question is woven into every moment of the film. The arrival of reptilian newcomers in a city built entirely around mammals challenges not just the characters but the very foundation of Zootopia's ideals. For years, mammals believed they had created the ultimate inclusive society. But what happens when a group that has always been ignored demands to be seen? This theme of visibility and erasure is reflected in the way the city itself reacts to the reptiles. Some mammals welcome them with curiosity. Others eye them with suspicion. And beneath the surface, there are whispers, rumors that the reptiles have their own agenda, that they don't belong, that Zootopia should have never let them in. The most powerful symbol of this theme is Marsh Market. This hidden district, long kept away from public view, represents everything Zootopia wants to forget. It is a place where reptiles have lived for years, building a parallel society that has existed in the shadows. It is proof that Zootopia's history isn't as progressive as it pretends to be. The city didn't just overlook reptiles, it pushed them out, forced them to create a life outside the system. The setting is rich with visual symbolism. Unlike the polished modern districts we saw in the first film, Marsh Market feels older, untouched, like a lost chapter of the city's past. Its winding alleyways, overgrown buildings, and neon lights flickering in the mist paint a picture of a place that was never given a chance to thrive. It is beautiful, eerie, and above all else, undeniable. Through Marsh Market, the film poses a difficult question. Is inclusion real if it only happens when it's convenient? Judy Hopps, once the embodiment of optimism and belief in justice, struggles with this reality. She has spent years believing that Zootopia was a place where anyone could be anything. Through Marsh Market, the film poses a difficult question. Is inclusion real if it only happens when it's convenient? Judy Hopps, once the embodiment of optimism and belief in justice, struggles with this reality. She has spent years believing that Zootopia was a place where anyone could be anything. But now, she's forced to confront the fact that the system she swore to protect was designed to exclude an entire group of people. For Nick Wilde, this story cuts even deeper. His entire life, he has fought against the stereotypes placed upon him. He knows what it feels like to be seen as dangerous, to have his very existence questioned. And yet, even he finds himself wary of the reptiles. It's instinct. It's fear. And that is what makes his journey so compelling, because even someone who has been a victim of bias can still carry it within themselves. One of the most striking symbols in the film is the way light and darkness are used. Throughout Zootopia 2, key moments take place in areas where light is fragmented, where shadows stretch unnaturally. Conversations happen in alleyways illuminated by half-broken street lamps, in rooms where only part of a character's face is visible. This visual motif represents hidden truths, secrets that have been buried, injustices that have been ignored. When Judy and Nick first step into Marsh Market, they are bathed in cold, pale light. They don't belong there, not yet. But as they begin to see the truth about the city, about themselves, the lighting subtly shifts. By the end of the film, they are no longer seen in sharp contrast. Instead, they stand within the same light as the reptiles they once feared. Another powerful symbol is the reflections. Mirrors, glass, and water reflections appear throughout the film, often at moments when characters are questioning themselves. When Nick first begins doubting his own biases, he catches his reflection in a window, but instead of seeing himself in his police uniform, he sees himself as the street hustler he once was. Judy experiences a similar moment when she walks past a storefront and sees her reflection split into multiple versions of herself. It is a reminder that she is not just one thing, not just a cop, not just an optimist, not just a hero. She is all of them at once, and that is both her strength and her conflict. And then there's the most unsettling reflection of all, the final message left in the city. Near the climax of the film, as riots break out and fear threatens to consume Zootopia, a chilling phrase is painted onto a wall. The city doesn't belong to you. The words are left ambiguous. Who wrote them? Who are they meant for? Are they a warning to the mammals who have controlled Zootopia for so long? Or are they a declaration from those who have been excluded for years, finally demanding to be recognized? This phrase becomes a symbol of revolution, of change, of a city that is no longer willing to pretend it has always been perfect. And that is what makes Zootopia 2 so powerful. It doesn't offer easy answers. It doesn't tie everything up neatly. It forces its characters, and its audience, to confront the reality that inclusion is not just about opening doors. It is about acknowledging who has been kept outside all along. By the end of the film, Zootopia is forever changed. It is still the same city, the same towering buildings, the same bustling streets. But now, the shadows that once hid the truth have been brought into the light. Judy and Nick stand at the edge of Marsh Market, looking out at a world that is no longer divided in the same way it once was. Judy turns to Nick and asks, "What happens now?" Nick smirks, his reflection in the puddle next to him no longer distorted. We start listening. And with that, Zootopia 2 delivers its most powerful message. True progress isn't just about welcoming change, it's about understanding what came before. The magic of Zootopia 2 isn't just in its story. It's in the way the film pulls audiences into its world, using every cinematic tool available to enhance its atmosphere, heighten emotions, and make Zootopia feel more alive than ever before. From its groundbreaking animation techniques to its immersive sound design, every frame of the film is a carefully crafted experience that ensures viewers don't just watch the movie. They feel it. One of the most striking aspects of Zootopia 2 is how it visually transforms the city. The first film introduced audiences to a bright, inviting world, where different biomes, Tundra Town, Sahara Square, and the Rainforest District, showcased Zootopia's diversity. But in the sequel, the cinematography takes a dramatic shift. Lighting plays a huge role in setting the tone of the movie. Gone are the even, warm colors of the first film. Instead, Zootopia 2 uses harsher contrasts, deeper shadows, and fragmented light sources to reflect the growing divide within the city. This change is most apparent in Marsh Market, the hidden district where reptiles have been living for years. Unlike the bustling, well-lit areas of Zootopia's downtown, Marsh Market is cloaked in mist, lit only by neon signs that flicker like ghosts in the fog. To achieve this effect, the animators completely rebuilt their lighting engine, creating a system that allowed fog and artificial lights to interact in real time, making the city feel truly alive. When a character moves through the mist, the particles react, swirling around them in ways that feel eerily real. One of the most visually striking sequences in the film takes place deep in Marsh Market, when Judy and Nick step into a hidden chamber beneath the city. The cinematography here is deliberately unsettling. The camera lingers on reflections, distorts depth perception, and plays tricks on the viewer's eye. In one chilling moment, Judy walks past a mirror and her reflection lags for just a fraction of a second. It's barely noticeable, but it's enough to unsettle audiences, making them question whether they actually saw it or if it was just their imagination. These subtle visual cues make the film feel more immersive, pulling the audience deeper into the mystery and unease that hangs over the story. But it's not just the visuals that build the tension, it's the sound. The sound design in Zootopia 2 is a masterpiece in psychological manipulation. Unlike traditional animated films, which rely heavily on orchestral scores and clear sound cues, Zootopia 2 uses silence as a weapon. There are entire sequences where music drops out completely, leaving nothing but breathing, distant footsteps, or the hum of unseen city life. One of the most powerful examples of this happens when Judy and Nick enter a reptilian hideout, following a lead. As they move deeper into the building, the usual background noise of Zootopia fades away. No traffic, no city hum, just their footsteps and something else. A faint, almost imperceptible hiss. It's so subtle that most viewers don't notice it at first. But as the characters move closer to the truth, the sound gets slightly louder, creeping into the audience's subconscious, making them feel uneasy without knowing why. Then, just when the tension reaches its peak, a sharp, sudden burst of noise, a door slamming, a neon light flickering too loudly, a character breathing too heavily, snaps the audience's nerves like a rubber band. This technique, building tension with silence and breaking it with precisely timed sound cues, is something more commonly seen in horror films than animated movies. But Zootopia 2 isn't afraid to experiment with sound in ways that unsettle and captivate. Music, when it does appear, is also used in strategic, unexpected ways. The film's composer chose to incorporate traditional orchestral elements with electronic distortion, mirroring the themes of modernization versus history, order versus chaos. One of the most memorable musical sequences happens when Judy and Nick attend a citywide rally, where different groups clash over the reptilian integration. Instead of using a swelling, dramatic score, the scene plays out with nothing but a heartbeat-like drum in the background, creating a sense of growing pressure, conflict, and inevitability. As voices rise, the music doesn't overpower. It fades, replaced by overlapping arguments, snippets of angry conversation, words blending into a chaotic wall of noise. This moment puts the audience in Judy and Nick's shoes, overwhelmed, caught between competing truths, unable to focus on a single voice. Then, just as Judy prepares to speak, everything cuts to silence. Her words land in absolute stillness, making the moment 20 times more powerful than if music had swelled behind her. But Zootopia 2 doesn't just experiment with sound, it revolutionizes animation itself. Disney's fur rendering technology, already groundbreaking in the first film, was taken to an entirely new level in the sequel. Now, every character's fur reacts to wind, light, and water in real time. This is most noticeable during a scene in the pouring rain, where Nick's usually well-kept fur becomes damp and weighed down, individual strands sticking together realistically. For the first time, Zootopia's world feels truly tangible, making every movement, every setting, feel more immersive than ever before. And the world responded. When Zootopia 2 finally hit theaters, it didn't just break records, it shattered expectations. Opening weekend alone, the film pulled in over $100 million, making it one of the highest-grossing animated sequels of all time. Fans flooded social media with praise, not just for the story but for how it felt like stepping into a real place. Critics called it a visual and auditory masterpiece, praising its ability to use filmmaking techniques more common in live-action thrillers to elevate the animated genre. And perhaps the most telling sign of its success? The way audiences couldn't stop talking about what they felt. How the silence made them uneasy, how the lighting made them question everything, how the city felt so real it was almost unsettling. In the end, Zootopia 2 wasn't just a movie. It was an experience, a testament to what happens when animation evolves beyond expectation, when sound and visuals don't just tell a story but pull you into it, making you part of the world itself. And as the credits rolled, one thing became clear. Zootopia was never just a city. It was a reflection of us. The magic of Zootopia 2 doesn't just come from its breathtaking animation or its thought-provoking themes. It comes from the voices behind the characters, the actors who brought them to life in ways that were deeper, funnier, and more emotional than anyone expected. For years, fans of the original Zootopia had been waiting for the return of Judy Hopps and Nick Wilde, two characters whose chemistry and banter made the first film unforgettable. But what no one anticipated was just how much the sequel would challenge them, and how their actors, Ginnifer Goodwin and Jason Bateman, would elevate their performances to an entirely new level. The return of Judy and Nick. For Ginnifer Goodwin, stepping back into Judy Hopps' world wasn't just about slipping into her optimistic, determined voice again. This time, Judy was different. "She's seen things now," Goodwin said in an interview. "She's no longer the bright-eyed rookie who thought she could solve everything just by working hard enough. Now she's wrestling with the fact that the city she loves has deeper problems than she ever realized." Judy's arc in Zootopia 2 is one of self-doubt and rediscovery, a shift that meant Goodwin had to add more layers to her performance. "I wanted her voice to reflect that hesitation, that sense that for the first time, she's not sure if she's right." One of the most powerful moments for her was recording the speech Judy gives during the film's final act, when she exposes the truth about Zootopia's past and calls for real change. "I was crying while reading those lines," Goodwin admitted. "I had to take a minute before we could finish the take because it felt so real, so relevant. This isn't just an animated movie. It's a reflection of what we go through in the real world." Jason Bateman, Nick Wilde's greatest test. For Jason Bateman, Nick Wilde's evolution in the sequel meant that he had to balance humor with an underlying sense of unease. "Nick has always been the guy who acts like nothing bothers him," Bateman explained. "But in Zootopia 2, he's forced to confront his own fears, his own biases. He's always been the one pointing out how unfair the system is, but now he realizes he's guilty of the same thing." Bateman, known for his dry wit and comedic timing, was given more room to improvise in this film, leading to some of the movie's funniest lines. "There's a scene where Nick is interrogating a suspect, and I just started riffing," he laughed. "I figured, let's see how far we can take this. Next thing I know, "We're all laughing so hard we can't finish the take." That natural chemistry between Nick and Judy's voice actors shines in every scene, making their arguments, jokes, and emotional moments feel completely real. The mysterious newcomer, Gary the Snake. One of the biggest surprises in the film came in the form of Gary, the smooth-talking, unpredictable snake who becomes a major player in the story. His voice actor? A fan-favorite performer known for their ability to make even the most morally complex characters impossible to look away from. At first, Gary was written as a cold, intimidating figure, but the actor's natural charm and unpredictability changed the character entirely. Suddenly, Gary wasn't just mysterious. He was fun, charismatic, and maybe a little too good at making people trust him, said one of the film's directors. His introduction scene, where he slithers through Marsh Market delivering a speech about power and perception, was so captivating that test audiences wanted more of him. He wasn't originally supposed to have such a big role, the director admitted. But we kept expanding his scenes because every time we recorded a session, he stole the show. The chemistry behind the microphone. Unlike many animated films, where actors record their lines separately, Zootopia 2 brought its main cast together in the same room for several key scenes. This led to more natural interactions, better improvisation, and some completely unscripted moments that made it into the final cut. One of these moments happened during a heated argument between Judy and Nick, where their friendship is tested like never before. The original script had a very structured back and forth, Goodwin said. But when we got into the recording booth, we just went for it. Jason threw out a line, I reacted, he reacted. It became this real raw argument between two friends who deeply care about each other but don't know how to fix what's broken. That unscripted energy made the scene one of the most emotionally intense in the film, something that audiences immediately latched onto. Audience reactions. A movie that stayed with them. From the moment Zootopia 2 hit theaters, audiences were talking. Social media was flooded with reactions, ranging from fans picking apart hidden details to emotional posts about how much the film resonated with them. One of the biggest topics of discussion? The film's final message. After the climactic revelation about Zootopia's history, one line was repeated over and over again online. The city doesn't belong to you. The phrase, spray-painted on a wall in one of the film's final moments, became a symbol of revolution, of change, of voices long ignored finally being heard. Many fans called it the most powerful ending in an animated film in years. It's not just about Zootopia, one review read. It's about us. It's about history, about who has been left out, about what we choose to see and what we choose to ignore. Box office success. Breaking records. As expected, Zootopia 2 dominated the box office. Opening weekend alone, it brought in over $120 million, making it one of the highest-grossing animated sequels in history. Critics praised the film's mature storytelling, stunning animation, and the fearless way it tackled difficult themes. But the biggest testament to the film's success? The conversations it started. Viewers left the theater not just entertained, but thinking about who gets to belong, about what stories are told, and about what it means to truly accept change. And that, more than anything, is what makes Zootopia 2 special. It's not just a movie. It's a challenge, a reflection, a story that refuses to be forgotten. As the credits roll on Zootopia 2, it's impossible to shake the feeling that something bigger has happened here. This wasn't just a sequel. It was a statement, a film that expanded its world, deepened its characters, and left audiences with a story that lingers long after the final scene fades to black. Looking back, we've explored everything that made this film an unforgettable experience, from its intricate themes of identity, inclusion, and systemic bias, to its masterful filmmaking techniques that made the city feel more alive and immersive than ever before. We've dived into the incredible voice performances, the behind-the-scenes secrets, and the record-breaking success that proved Zootopia is still one of Disney's most beloved franchises. At its heart, Zootopia 2 is about who gets to belong. The first film taught us that anyone can be anything. But this time? The question isn't about what you can be, it's about who gets to decide where you belong. The introduction of reptilian characters into Zootopia challenged everything that Judy and Nick, and the audience, thought they knew about their world. Through stunning visuals, powerful dialogue, and subtle yet brilliant storytelling, the film forced us to confront the realities of exclusion, fear, and the way history shapes the present. And it did all of this without ever feeling preachy. Instead, it wrapped these ideas in a gripping mystery, tense political drama, and unforgettable character moments that kept viewers on the edge of their seats. We witnessed Judy Hopps wrestle with her own belief in the system she swore to protect, as she realized that justice is only as strong as those who enforce it. We watched Nick Wilde face his own prejudices, learning that even someone who has been a victim of bias can still carry it within themselves. And then there was Gary, the enigmatic snake whose very presence raised questions the city wasn't ready to answer. Was he a hero? A manipulator? A symbol of everything Zootopia had ignored for too long? With its breathtaking cinematography, its use of light and sound to shape atmosphere, and its bold, unflinching storytelling, Zootopia 2 didn't just entertain, it challenged. And the audience responded. From the moment it hit theaters, the film sparked conversation. Viewers left with more questions than answers, debating the film's deeper messages, dissecting its hidden details, and sharing their own interpretations of its most haunting moments. But if there's one thing everyone agreed on, it's this. This movie mattered. It wasn't just about solving a case. It wasn't just about action, or humor, or adventure. It was about what happens when a society is forced to confront its own reflection. And that's what makes Zootopia 2 one of the most important animated films in recent history. So, as we wrap up this deep dive, let's leave with one final question. What do you see when you look at your own city? What stories have been told? And which ones have been forgotten? Because just like in Zootopia, the answers are always there, if we choose to look for them. If you loved this breakdown and want to see more in-depth movie analysis, behind-the-scenes insights, and discussions about the films that shape our world, make sure to hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications. This is just the beginning. And as we've learned from Zootopia 2, every story has more to uncover. Until next time, stay curious, keep questioning, and never stop exploring the worlds that movies bring to life.